So I was reading an article today, and I was gonna write down the stats for you guys, but they're always changing. But the stats right now for like couples married living together in like a got my Christmas tree up and everything, living in a like married couple stats and like families with, you know, children and married parents, like the stats are super low right now. They're insane. And like the rate of like a man, the age of a man when he for his first marriage, they said, is like 30, which is like really old compared to the old days. And so I've actually been thinking about this a lot, and I was actually going to make a video about this in itself, but I know that I'm going to go on a little bit of a sun conjunction tangent in this video, so I'll just go ahead and go on my little rant about this here. I've really been contemplating lately, like, why we're having such trouble, and obviously it has to do with, you know, a lot of, what's the word, it's not like transient, but everybody's much more transient nowadays. Transient sounds bad, you know, it's like, but, you know, we're always moving around, and so it's like, why aren't we connecting with the right people? Because it's not just me, even though sometimes it feels like it's just me. There's so many clients that come to me that they're like, oh, my boyfriend, and it's someone they're only dating 2 to 4 months, and it's not their boyfriend. It's like they're not even committed, you know, and then guys play this game where, you know, they act like they're with you, but then they're not going to commit to BS, or women can do that to men too. So the thing is I was thinking, like, why are we coming across so many of the, according to the stars, people that are just not compatible with us? Like, yes, they're compatible with us on certain levels. We can have great aspects with these people that we really enjoy, and we want them to be the ones so we could thoroughly, you know, live those aspects and see them to the full potential. But the issue is that and I want to do this little side note really quick. Mars, I'm learning Mars square opposition Saturn as well, so I might actually put that in the title of this just as a reference, because I'm not going to make a whole video on it. So maybe, yeah, this will be Mars square Jupiter and Mars square Saturn, because I had looked back at, I had recently had a relationship that really reminded me of one that I had when I was 18. They're both Leos, and I had been thinking for the longest time that the one that I had the relationship when I was 18 with, that we had Mars square Jupiter. But that was actually, and I think I just said they're both Leos, there was an Aries when I was 18 as well. So it was like the beginning of being 18 was the Leo, and the end of being 18 was the Aries. And we had Mars square Jupiter. So I've encountered this a lot, and the thing is that when I discovered this pattern, like, I had been looking up the Synastry charts for years and years and years, even back then, and I would read the little descriptions, but nothing much more clicked for me, you know. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago that I was looking back at all these past relationships, and I was like, oh my God, this one, because I would always tell people the time frames, you know, and I've always been very they say, you know, people have like a visual memory, or you know, different types of memory. My memory has always been very chronological. I think I've said this before. It's probably the only reason I can use Facebook, because everything is in order. Like, Instagram was so overwhelming to me at first because everything is not in a time order, really. I'm more used to it now. Anyways, so I was looking back, and I'd always be like, you know, I've had like 2 solid relationships in my life, and they weren't necessarily solid, but I've had like 2 long-term ones, and everybody else only lasted like 2 months. So I had all these 2-month ones in between those 2, and since the second one. So I was like, I don't get it. And I looked back at all these relationships, and every single one that lasted 2 months had Mars square Jupiter. So I was thinking of this Leo when I was 18, that he was one of those, but he was actually a Mars, I think it's opposition Saturn, because I have that actually with a lot of people. It's like a year or 2 above me. Not all of them, but a certain range of them. Our Saturn in our age group is directly across from my Mars. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. Anyways, so I'm looking at this, and I realized that like most recent Leo that I did, I also had this Mars opposition Saturn with, and they reminded me a lot of each other. So I'm going to include Mars opposition Saturn because I come to the conclusion that with Mars opposition Saturn, it's still only about a 3 or 4 month relationship. It doesn't really, like Mars square Jupiter, I give it the leeway of 4 months because usually people are still hanging on to it at 4 months, trying to force it to work, but usually it's only like a solid, really 4 to 8 weeks. With Mars opposition Saturn or square Saturn, it can last about 3 solid months, and then it kind of turns into chaos. So but with Mars square Jupiter, people will hold on, especially Mars, the Mars person, right? Remember, Synastry is where we take the 2 birth charts and we look at how their planets are interacting. So with Mars square Jupiter, it's going to be one person's Mars square the other's Jupiter, or in opposition. It plays out the same way. Oppositions are a little more subtle, so there might not be as much conflict. But even with like this Mars opposition Saturn that I recently experienced, it was like we broke up, but we were still arguing a little bit, but there was like nothing to argue over because we were never really together. Where when I was young, 18, with Mars opposition Saturn, we were really together. Like we moved in together right away. He's like technically, well, I don't know, I've only really lived with one man. It's my ex-husband, but I've tried to move in with 2 or 3, and so he was one of them. And we moved in together right away. We'd known each other for since high school, but we hit it off like one day, and next thing you know, we were in a full-blown relationship, moved in together. He actually kind of helped me acquire my first apartment in a way, just helping get like the little bit of extra cash for the deposit or whatever. So he moved in, or we moved in together, but the thing is that with Mars, with that one, it was like Mars opposition Saturn, and Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie have either the opposition or the square of Mars and Saturn. With that one, for me and him, there was a lot of violence, like, and it could be because we were confined in a small space, where the other one, we had much more space and freedom from each other, and maturity, you know, I'm a lot older now. So I would say that, you know, when you have a Mars opposition or square anything, especially Pluto, especially Jupiter, and especially Saturn, because Pluto and Saturn are like, Pluto's the god of the underworld. He fought Saturn. I've told you guys this in other videos. Saturn was his father, and like, you know, they fought for the underworld. That's like mythology. And so you bring Mars in there, the warrior, as a square hard aspect, and you know, it's just it's not going to work at the very least, and it can do a lot of damage. It can cause TV, you know. So this is where I go back to like us not mating with the right people. We're going off pheromones, we're going off hormones, we're going off society's standards. But the thing about our society right now is it's so changeable and so flexible, and so it's like you can love whoever you want, so you have these endless options. So I feel like in a time where, you know, even my mother had 2 marriages where she had one, it was just not good moon compatibility, lasted 10 years, like I always say, and one, they had a lot of these Saturn square Pluto, which is Saturn square Pluto. I should make its own, I'll make a video about that, but that is probably one of the most destructive, damaging ones that there are. Now, it might not show up for a few years when you're dealing with Saturn. With Mars, things happen pretty quick. Mars isn't quite as fast as Mercury, but Mars is a fast-moving planet. Saturn and Pluto are slow-moving planets, so it might take a few years. You might realize that that person has totally corroded you, or really eaten at your self-esteem, or, you know, and then you two just can't stand each other. Or Mars or Saturn square Pluto, though, is a, I'm kind of going off on a different one, you guys, so hope I'm not losing you. It is a divorce aspect. So Saturn square Pluto or opposition, you can get married with it. Mars opposition Saturn or square, I may have seen it in marriages before, don't quote me on it, because Saturn does take a little while to kick in. But if you've got a lot of Mars energy going on between you two, like with these two, our Marses were pretty activated, our Marses, because like my Mars actually like sextiles late July Leos, so I do attract a lot of those, and so my Mars is very active here. So then you put like the more recent Leo, his Mars was with my Mars, and then you put my Saturn, I think, across from that. And Saturn's a planet of commitment, and it's interesting because he was so afraid of commitment with me. And I'm actually going to talk another video about another reason why he was. And then when I was married, my ex-husband, I had Mars opposition Saturn, and it was actually he was Saturn, because I told you everyone like a year and a half to 2 years older than me. Not all of them. There's I think if you're born in the second half of 86, not to age myself, you won't have that aspect with me. But if you're born but if you're born late 85, early 86, then your Saturn will be exactly opposite my Mars, just because Saturn was in Sagittarius, exactly opposite where my Mars sits in Gemini at that time. So with that being said, in that relationship where he was Saturn and I was Mars, he was very stuffy and controlling, so I can see where that fear was when I was Saturn. I'm like, why are you freaking out about commitment? I was just enjoying this, trying to make it last as long as we could before, it just kind of died or we had to do something about it. I'm not trying to move in or get married or anything, I like to be monogamous for health reasons, and it's convenient. If anything, this was convenient for me and I enjoyed it. It wasn't like I was trying to make it last forever. But with Saturn opposite someone's Mars is their behavior, the way they go about something, and then your Saturn is in a hard aspect to that. They're thinking you're trying to, Saturn is glue. They're like, no, you're trying to grab my action, you're trying to control my movement. It's like, I wasn't controlling anything. I was just trying to keep things going good, as long as I could. So I thought maybe it lasted a year or two, lasted 3 months, whatever. Now back to, so that is a divorce aspect. Like I said, I had it with my ex-husband. But at the same time, it can also break a couple up around 3 to 4 months, especially if they're not ready to commit. Like when I met my ex-husband, he wanted to commit, and he was Mars, I was Saturn, so my Saturn probably felt comforting to him. He was like, I'm ready to have a commitment. And so he, as Mars, he, even though it was a hard aspect, felt comforted by that glue, that weight of he was Saturn. So of course he wanted to commit. I felt comforted by that because he was offering me security, even if it was in a hard aspect, and I'd find out later that wasn't really going to work. So these are divorce aspects. You can get married with them. But with Mars square opposition Jupiter, I've only ever seen, and I don't know if I've said this in any of my YouTube videos, but I tell my clients this a lot because it comes up a lot. So that's why I'm telling you guys, I have to really sit here and think about, why are we pairing with the wrong ones, I should have brought this up in the beginning, and I always do this, so if you made it this far, this is what I created in conjunction with Psychics Gold and Rotation 411, which is Rotation 411's a little bit more my site. I don't know if you guys can hear that loud airplane. I created the Divine Timing Database. Now, the only people that have really heard about it are people that I know personally, so they're just kind of like, whatever, but these are the same people in my life that come to me and have me run their charts on everyone, just like my clients do, except for I don't get paid for it. I'm doing it out of my pure passion for the subject and, wanting people to succeed in their relationships. So it's very time consuming. So it's a $10 fee because it is a service, and and right now there's not a lot of people in there, but spread the word and get in there, you guys. And if you are single and you've been single for a while and you're frustrated, maybe you've had a reading from me before and all your exes you have divorce or deal breaker aspects with, get in the Divine Timing Database. What do you have to lose? If you go on Match.com, it's $30-$40 a month, right? This is $10 one time. Now, once the database grows to 30,000 people, I'm going to raise it to $30 per submission, but it's one time. And the only time you would ever pay again is, say we find you your matches, then you and you don't like them for some reason. It could be superficial reasons, or it could be just it doesn't work out. You guys want to live in different cities. I've had 1 or 2 really great astrological matches that there was some Uranus going on there, but it just we just didn't have the same desires for life. So I really encourage you to submit to that, or if you know anyone, because the more people that submit, the more matches that we're going to have. And it's important, because do you guys really want to just keep dating and getting nowhere? All right. So anyways, enough about that. I wasn't here to sell you that, but I do want to start saying it at the beginning of my videos so that, eventually you guys, it'll click and you'll start submitting, because, my clients are like, well, or even people that ask me, they're like, well, how do I know who the right match is? Like, well, we have to run the charts. So if y'all could just go submit your information in the database, I can do it quickly, rather than me having to run each person that comes to me's chart one by one, send you guys out in the world to find your people one by one and come back to me. Oh, this one's really great. Can you let's just get it done, you guys. Let's just find our people, get on with our lives, eliminate as many divorces as possible, okay? And a lot of my people that are paired up in my life, like, they don't have perfect relationships, but they do have moon trines. They do have their moon conjunctions, I had said, actually, I just want to make a note of this. In my twin flame video, I said, they say if the moons aren't in proper dignity, that in Vedic astrology, that, it's the man's moon has to be above or whatever. I said, I don't know that really makes a difference, because I feel that the moons are very magnetic and important, even when they're out of sign, even though that doesn't work. But the proper dignity, I was like, I don't know. The thing is I always see deal breakers. Well, now I realize one of my good friends, they have their moons closed, not in proper dignity, and they have no deal breakers, and they work pretty damn well together. Excuse my language, So, I mean, no relationship is perfect, but I do think that they can stick it out for the long haul, and they're able to just adapt to things that other couples couldn't. And the other thing too is that when you have a marriage, and this is just a side note, that marriage, and I think it was like, I was watching some YouTube video of psychologists saying this, functions for society. It's not just for the couple. Like, marriages help other people too, a lot of the time, when there's a solid unit like that, it helps other people a lot more than an individual can, just being like pillars of the community in a way. So anyways, back to Mars square Jupiter. This is not a divorce aspect, and so you think divorce aspect sounds worse than a deal breaker aspect. I kind of want to make a video where I just tell you guys this is what a divorce aspect is, but if you watch enough of my videos, because I repeat this a lot. A deal breaker is worse than a divorce aspect because you cannot really get married when you have a deal breaker. You're lucky. I mean, they have different lengths of time, but deal breakers, people don't get married. With divorce aspects, you can get married. Now, is that better? Not necessarily, because now you have to go through a whole divorce, you know what I mean? So like I said, like Mars opposition Saturn or Mars square Pluto, you can, or Saturn square Pluto, you can still get married with those, but Mars square Jupiter, you cannot get married. The only couple I've ever seen that has it is Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, and they, had a very tumultuous marriage, and I think that the only reason that it even happened in the first place is because their Venuses are conjunct, and Venus can smooth over a lot. I don't know that I've seen this as an example, but I would say like the only other couple that's probably going to get married with Mars square Jupiter and have it last for any period of time is going to be like a moon conjunction. Luckily, when you see moon conjunctions, you don't usually see deal breakers. You do every now and then, but not really. So, speaking of this Venus conjunction, and I had mentioned it in one or two videos, and if you watched the Celebrity Synastry about them, it's smoothed that out for them enough to get married. Now, it's also the same exact reason why they're going through what they're going through right now in the courts, okay? Because Mars square in opposition Jupiter, while this person is not written in the stars for you of who you're supposed to be in a loving, committed, healthy relationship for life with, it's not, it's your karmic soulmate, but it's not your soulmate. They're coming to teach you pretty much what you don't want, like the law of attraction says. This person is hard to let go of, especially for Mars. Like Jupiter will when a Jupiter person hits me up, or when I've been Jupiter in these scenarios, you did really like the person at first, and you'll kind of always wonder why it didn't work. And Jupiter people come to me like, I don't know what's going on, but they're not real stressed about it usually. Jupiter is very high vibe. He's Santa Claus of the zodiac, so he doesn't stress a whole lot. He's kind of magical, but he'll be kind of like, what's up here? He has higher knowledge, so he'll try to figure it out a little, but he won't put too much weight on it. In this scenario, it could be he or she, whoever's Jupiter. But Mars, is physical passion. So Mars was really attracted. Jupiter and Mars are very attracted in the beginning. Like I've said before, this is like the shotgun wedding. I would love to go over like Kim K and Britney Spears and those marriages they had that lasted like a few days. Those were probably Mars square Jupiter type of scenarios to end so suddenly. because, yeah. So anyways, Mars is so passionate about Jupiter that Mars just, that feeling, it's hard to let go of because they really felt like they were the one. And so Mars will wonder for years sometimes. Like sometimes my Mars people will come to me and they'll be like, so what happened here? My boyfriend's like being distant. It's been 4 months. I'm like, to tell you the truth, like it's already been over for like 2 months. It was so passionate in the beginning and it felt so right that you think that it's going to go back to that, and it's not. Like a lot of unhealthy relationships, we're always waiting for that honeymoon stage to come back. Now with Mars square Jupiter, I was trying to kind of differentiate, and this is when I decided I'm going to make the video, why sometimes that'll only be those 2 months, where they really hit it off, and then it'll just be years of pining and wondering, and it can vary how hurt Mars is. Like Mars people could 5 years later still really be stuck on that person. And it's unfortunate, because that passion is so intense, they might turn down other people. And I've seen it, and I've seen them get mad at me for telling them that this isn't the person for them, obviously. But, it's harder when you're in it. So, so I was trying to figure out, like, okay, so I also know another way that Mars, and I might have said this in the Are You Wasting Your Time video, but at least there's not a bunch of crazy music this time. The other way that Mars square Jupiter can play out is it can be someone, and I actually I get these clients all the time, and this is when I learned it wasn't just me, and that the world really needs to get this message, Of course, then you got news outlets saying things like, oh, there's a 13th sign, and the calendars and clocks are off, so then it makes you guys second guess yourselves, just like they say that it's the Bader-Meinhof effect, synchronicities, or whatever the name is. Like, yeah, they want to throw you off your game, all right? They don't want you to know this. The camera died when I was like, they don't want you to know. And again, loud helicopter. I live in the city. So I'm going to try to wrap this up with as much battery life as I have, because I really want to do the Venus-Mars Sun conjunction video tonight also. Anyways, so they don't want you to know these things because it's profitable for them, to have us all in disarray. And it's something about, actually the woman who taught me tarot, she told me how in Rome, or like the Catholic Church at some point had banned marriage. There's actually a saint, Cupid, like Saint Valentine, is because he was marrying people, because the Catholic Church had banned marriage because they knew that a couple was a union and it was more powerful than one. So because of this, they want to keep us kind of in disarray. They don't want too many units. Now, this could all be conspiracy theory, but I don't know. That's just, it all makes sense to me, all right? And it goes with everything that I'm telling you here. So this would be a reason why the media at times will, try to discredit astrology, or I mentioned this on the last Celebrity Synastry, but like every university, like in my astronomy 201 class and in my psychology 101 class, they both had a page in their book discrediting astrology, and people will warn me too, like, this is a taboo subject, you could be ostracized, and I'm like, man, but then it's such a trendy subject at the same time now, so it's like everyone thinks they're an astrologist, and I'm actually amazed in LA, like I was saying before, it's a very spiritual place. Most people are pretty caught up on it, like they definitely can follow along. But anyways, back to Mars square Jupiter. So the other way that it can play out, and I've told my clients this before, is that the two will either work together or go to school together, and it'll be like this weird, intense, like, attraction, but they never act on it, and so they can't figure out why. And a lot of my clients come to me in this scenario with Mars square Jupiter with someone. They're like, I know, like, there's an attraction, but it's like there's no connecting. So it's either they connect instantly, like when they first meet, kind of spontaneously, out of like coming out of their own two worlds. But if they're placed in the same environment together, like in a school or a workplace, they get really awkward, but like really intense. But a lot of times nothing ever comes of it except for one or both of them like really curious about the other, And even if they try to date, like they try to link up, it just kind of doesn't really happen. So, and I've seen that play out many times with clients, and I think once it's played out like that for me. So I was trying to figure out, like, when is it that it plays out that way where they're reconnecting at intervals? versus where it's just like hot and dies. And I've seen it both ways with clients and in my experiences with it. And so I was like just trying to figure out the differences, and one difference would be, again, the environment. So one of the examples I used in the Are You Wasting Your Time video, I'm worried about the battery running out now, it was that if you had to stick these two in a room together, like they just decided that they were going to try to live together, which I had actually thought I had that anyway, they'll just never, like, one will want to be there and one won't, kind of a thing, and they'll always be battling to try to like keep the other as soon as the other's not interested, kind of a thing. So the other thing I figured out about it being over time when they reconnect is like how the Venus conjunction could allow two people to marry, when, again, I want to reiterate that this aspect, people do not get married with it. That is literally the only couple I've ever seen get married with it, because of the vast resources from Venus. So, and it's a very barren aspect too. Like, I've never seen a couple with children with it. Like, if somebody's coming to me with, you know, whether I'm looking at marriages or somebody's coming to me about their baby mama drama or whatever, like, I never have seen this in a couple that has children together, not once. Now, again, you know, not everything's set in stone, but I've seen many, many examples of this. I probably see 25% of the relationships of the clients that, like, come to me, they're dealing with one of these, and someone they met fairly recently, and anyways, or it's someone they've been stuck on for years, but like they were together a long time ago, you know. But I think that pretty much wraps up Mars square, Mars square Jupiter. And because I'm going to do the video with Venus and the Sun conjunct Jupiter, I'm just going to add Mars in there. So I'm not going to cover it in this video with Mars square Jupiter. But Mars and Jupiter are natural allies, and you know, they're kind of like, Jupiter's kind of like the authoritarian, but Mars is like his soldier, and they get a lot done together. They, you know, rule the signs of Sagittarius and Aries, fire signs. So, you know, fire signs are very active and progressive and productive. So, yeah, you get those two together, and it's great usually. But when they're in a square, it's like they're really drawn to each other, but nothing really can become of it. What I like to say is it's not written in the stars, so to speak. So the one last thing I want to say, though, is I've seen also, so when I was looking back at my experiences with it, because again, I've had multiple like 2-month relationships, and this shows up in probably half of those, so like a handful or something over my lifetime, being single for like a very long time. I noticed that the one that I was able to actually like come together with in a like closer way than the rest, and there never was a big falling out. There was a little falling out at the end of like the first 2 months, but we kind of always reconnect over the years, and in kind of a magical way. We probably had other things going on in our chart, but our suns were conjunct because he's April 16th, so our suns were conjunct in a 5-degree orb. So I think like having that tight of a sun conjunction can make this. Oh, and there's another Aries I actually dated in like high school, on and off, and into our early 20s, and I actually reconnected with him just to like catch up about 2 years ago. But same thing with him, like we always were just so cool, have a great time together. The shit would go down when we were kids because we had the same group of friends, but even then, like, we were able to be like around the same people, where when Mars square Jupiter, usually you're like living in 2 separate worlds, remember, like 2 separate environments. So usually your worlds, they don't intermingle as much. Like they can a little bit, but like when there's a sun conjunction, the worlds are very much more parallel and overlap a lot more. So you know a lot more of the same people, kind of a thing. Anyway, but it can make it'll still kind of play out where it's off and on, like very short on, very long off kind of thing. But it just doesn't feel very uncomfortable. Nobody really like. You'll kind of wonder, like the other ones, like why it didn't work out, but it won't be like longing for them or anything like that. Like you could really see with Mars being activated. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get into the Mars conjunct Jupiter video, and along with Venus conjunct Jupiter and the Sun conjunct Jupiter. And if you had watched the What is the last celebrity couple that I did? I'm just like spacing it today. Oh, and I got Megan Fox and MGK. I talked about it a little bit there, I think, with their Venus conjunct. I think they had Venus conjunct Jupiter, but don't quote me on that. All right. So sending you lots of love, blessings, and light.